Project Pan. Project Pan. I love a Project Pan update, and it's time for another one. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm about a month behind in updating you guys. I am still keeping track. I'm keeping track, and one of these days I'm going to put out 2 updates in 1 month, and you guys are going to be like, whoa, what? And then we're going to be on the same page. We're going to be up to date, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great for both of us, for both me and for you. And one day that day will come. One day that will happen. One day. Could be this month. You never know. We'll just have to wait and see. So this is technically my update for the month of June. That's all the information that you need to know now. Let's update. First things first. This is always first. I always go in the same order, at least I try to. Becca Under Eye Brightener. I have the goal of finishing this product. I used it 18 times in the month of January, 23 times in the month of February, 11 times in the month of March, 10 times in the month of April, 10 times in the month of May, and 13 times in the month of June. So we have steady use going on it. I hit that side pan. I connected the middle pan to the outside a couple months ago, and I feel like I'm able to see the progress a lot better now. 13 uses in the month of June. I feel like that's about right. I know I had heavier uses in the first 2 months of the year, and it's possible that I'll use this more heavily once the cold rolls around. But for now, I'm just not liking anything under the eye. I think when it's warm, I want as little on as possible. So I've used this product 85 times total in the project. I'm probably looking at It's the Amazon guy. My dog. I cannot. I think I'm looking at the rest of the year before it's finished. I don't really want to rush with this one. I don't want to force myself to use it or to use it more heavily than I normally would. I'm just using it organically as I want to, and I think that means it will be finished by the end of the year, but probably not any sooner than that. Next, we have the Nudesticks blush in the shade Bareback. I have the goal of finishing this one. I was able to level it off a couple months ago, and then I decided that I did want to scoop it out because it's one of my favorite blushes, so I thought that that would be a good idea. But in terms of Project Pan, you just never realize how much product is actually left on the inside of there. I don't think I've ever scooped out any product ever, but I decided to do that with this one. I depotted it, decanted it into like a Glossier stretch concealer pot that I had left over, and there's so much product in there. I used this one 12 times in the month of January, 25 times in the month of February, 22 times in the month of March, 4 times in the month of April, 4 times in the month of May, and 7 times in the month of June. Ever since I decanted it out of its original container, the progress on it has slowed a ton. And I think that is in part because I don't recognize it when I see it. I don't recognize it as the Nudesticks blush. I just reach for it less frequently because of that. But I think it's also, I had a lot of momentum going. I could see it moving down, down, down in the packaging. And then once I scooped it out and there was so much left, it was a bit discouraging, you know? And so I just needed a break. I needed a slow down for a couple months where I've used it between 4 and 7 times for the past 3 months. I think that the use will kind of pick up as I start to see the progress happen more within the pot. I'll start to feel motivated again. But for now, I've used it 74 times, and I think I'm looking at least another 3 or 4 more months to go, depending on how motivated I feel in using it. Now we have the Shiseido Color Smart Tinted Moisturizer. This is one of those moisturizers that changes colors with application. It's supposed to go from white to your skin tone. I have the goal of finishing this one. I used it 1 time in the month of January, 1 time in the month of February, 0 times in the month of March, 24 times in the month of April, 12 times in the month of May, and 17 times in the month of June. As you can see, we're down at the very bottom. I didn't have the soul to cut it open quite yet, but I'm pretty sure I will do that this month. I'm pretty sure this product only has a handful of uses left in it. I've used it 55 times so far, and I can just tell we are on the last couple of uses. I believe that I will cut it open this month. And And in the same way that I've never scooped out a product before, I've also never cut open a product before. So it's a bit concerning. There might be way more in there than I'm expecting, but we'll just have to see. And once you cut open a product, it only has so much time left. So I didn't want to do that with this one too soon. I didn't want to preempt it and cut it open before it was time. We're coming to the end. I think it will be finished by the end of the month. Next, we have the Maybelline Lumi Bronzer. I have the goal of finishing this one. It is a bronzer with a very, very large pan. I repressed it a month or so ago, and the progress is steady. I used it 13 times in the month of January, 17 times in the month of February, 17 times in the month of March, 15 times in the month of April, 15 times in the month of May, and 11 times in the month of June. So a little bit of a slowdown. I have been very much focusing on my Chanel cream bronzer, and so that is getting a little bit more love, and the Lumi bronzer is slightly more neglected as a result, but 11 uses is still pretty good. I've used it 88 times so far within the project, and I would say that I've pretty much finished the product that is in the graded packaging. I was able to repress the bronzer a couple months ago, and part of it was still kind of stuck within the grates. So I've been using that, and then the other portion was repressed into another pan that I have. I believe that now that I've finished the graded part and can move on to the smaller pan, that I only have a month or two left. I would be surprised, maybe a month and a half, somewhere in there, but I would be surprised if it lasted the full 2 months. It is at the very end. If I continue with this kind of steady use between 10 and 20 uses over the next month or two, there's no way I'm not finishing it, which is pretty exciting. The Lumi pan is so large. That's a lot of bronzer to use up, and I'm getting close. Okay, an exciting update. It's the Sephora Matte Blush in the shade True Kiss. I have the goal of finishing this one. I used it 13 times in the month of January, 14 times in the month of February, 6 times in the month of March, 6 times in the month of April, 16 times in the month of May, and 7 times in the month of June before I finished it. I was able to repress it a couple months ago, the same time that I repressed the Lumi bronzer. And whenever you repress a thing and you start using it, it goes a whole lot faster. So it only took me 7 uses in the month of June before I finished it. I finished a blush, and a very colorful blush to boot. That's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. Blush is really hard to finish up, and this one in particular, because of its powerful, impactful color, I had to be very careful about using it. I layered it a lot to tone down the color, and I also used it on my eyes. I multi-purposed it. You know, you got to do that as a panner. And after 62 uses in this project, I finished it. Since I started documenting my makeup uses back in October 2022, I have used this blush 128 times. I've owned it longer than that though, so I am sure that I had a ton of use on it before I started documenting, maybe even 100 additional uses. But in terms of what I have tracked, 128 uses to finish it, 62 of those in this project. I took on a lot of blushes in this project, and I didn't really think about that at the beginning, but I really had to spread out my love and affection among all the blushes that I put in, and then also try to not neglect the blushes that I have that are not in a project. So it feels nice to finish a blush and have one less thing that I'm kind of focusing on, one less thing that I am needing to direct my affection towards. I can go ahead and use other things that I love and focus on other stuff that I have in the project, because this one is finished. Now, my nemesis, my arch enemy, the one that I love to hate, the Artist Couture Prep and Glow. The illuminating primer that I rolled in, even though it was in an opaque bottle, even though there's no way of knowing how much product is in there and how long it is going to last. Forever. The answer is forever. If I had known better, if I had thought about it, if I had thought at all, I probably would have weighed it at the beginning. I will be doing this in the future. If I ever want to roll in something that has an opaque bottle, I will be weighing it. I have a kitchen scale that I can use. So in future projects, that is definitely what I will be doing. But for this one, it's too far gone. Too many months have happened. Too much use has happened. I just got to stick with it, and I just got to stick with it. That's that's everything I have to say. I used it 8 times in the month of January, 8 times in the month of February, 17 times in the month of March, 17 times in the month of April, 22 times in the month of May, and 16 times in the month of June, for a total of 88 uses in the project, and it is still around. It is still kicking. This is the illuminating primer that will never die. There's still product in there somehow. It was always my goal to finish it. It is now my goal to finish it, and there's a difference. Next product, the L'Oreal 4-in-1 Tinted Balm. I have the goal of finishing this one as well. I used it 14 times in the month of January, 10 times in the month of February, 7 times in the month of March, 8 times in the month of April, 7 times in the month of May, and 9 times in the month of June. So very, very steady uses, hovering around 10 to 15 uses every single month. Just not forgetting about it, not neglecting it, not focusing on it completely by any stretch. I probably do makeup most days, so I'm only using this about a third of the time that I do my makeup, but it's enough. I think it's easy to think that you have to super focus on something in order to finish it, but as long as there's consistent use, it will get done eventually. And that's kind of been my mentality with this one. I've used it 55 times so far within the project, and you can see the use. The use is visible within the pot. And I think now that I'm working my way around the side, it will be even more motivating. I also think that once I finish up the Shiseido Color Smart Tinted Moisturizer, I'm gonna start focusing more on one of the other base products that I have in my project pan. There's a couple of different contenders. There's this L'Oreal Tinted Balm, there's the NARS Foundation, and there's also the Saint Cream Makeup. So one of those is gonna become my focus item. Wait and see which it will be. Hold on to your seat. Don't go nowhere. Next up, the Shiseido blush in the shade Aura Pink. I have the goal of finishing this blush as well. 2 blushes that I set the goal of finishing. I did that. I've had steady use on this one as well. I used it 7 times in the month of January, 3 times in the month of February, 5 times in the month of March, 8 times in the month of April, 4 times in the month of May, and 4 times in the month of June. Very little in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of how much I actually do my makeup, how many days I do my makeup in a month. Only 4 uses in the month of June, but the progress. I mean, I hope you guys can see in the pictures that is a very large pan going on. A little bit of this product goes a long way, and I often use this one to layer up with other blushes. That is how I am able to use so much blush. It is because I enjoy having a layered blush look. So I would say with that amount of pan, maybe 3 more months left before I finish this one, especially if I repress it. I'm going back and forth about whether or not I want to repress this blush. The reason that I wouldn't want to is because I don't always love the way that repressing changes the formula. The formula of this one currently is very thin and smooth, and I wouldn't want to lose any of that in the repressing. It really just depends whether or not I'm able to get to every single corner of this product as I'm going along. If it comes to a point where I'm not able to reach all of the product, then I will have to repress. But we'll just have to see. As of right now, I don't have plans to, but if I can't reach the product, I'll have to. And once you repress, it's fast. Okay, next up, the Becca Slimlight in the shade Pearl. I have the goal of finishing this one. It's like a little highlighter pen. I used it 2 times in the month of January, 8 times in the month of February, 20 times in the month of March, 10 times in the month of April, 7 times in the month of May, and 7 times in the month of June before finishing it up. I met another goal. I finished up this highlight pen, and I'm jazzed. I'm jazzed to have this one out of my collection. I know that Becca's not a thing anymore. They're not a brand anymore, at least not in a way where you can repurchase every single thing that they used to make. And I have to say that if it was, I don't think that I would repurchase this one. I didn't love the pencil application for a highlight. It was good when I wanted to use it on my eye, but oftentimes I would want to use it on my cheekbones, and I would just have to rub it on my finger until I, got enough product and then kind kind of tap it out on my cheekbone the way that I would ideally want to apply it. So that's why I like the RMS Living Luminizer. It's in that pot, and I can kind of just pick up the product on my finger and put it where I want it. I didn't like the kind of direct application that the pencil provided for a highlight. So I'm really happy to have this one finished up. I used it 52 times in the course of this project and 193 times over the course of owning it, and then some. I mean, there was at least a year that I wasn't tracking that I owned this product. A lot of uses, 193 that I tracked. That is a lot of good use on a little tiny pen like that. Probably because the main way that I like to use it was on my eye. It's such a small space. You don't need a lot of product. Either way, however you look at it, any way you slice it, it's gone, and I'm happy about that. Second goal hit. Now, the e.l.f. Stay All Night Setting Mist. I have the goal of finishing this setting spray. I used it 18 times in the month of January, 12 times in the month of February, 14 times in the month of March, 3 times in the month of April, 7 times in the month of May, and 2 times in the month of June. I have no desire to use setting spray in the summer. I'm learning this about myself. That fact is now solidified in my mind. I understand that setting spray is a cold weather product for me, and I just don't enjoy using it in the summer months, which is fine. It just means that in the case of the project pan, usage is going to be slow for a while. I've used it 56 times so far in the course of the project. That's pretty good, and you can see how much the product has gone down. We don't have much left, probably 2 to 3 months of winter use, but we're not in the winter. So it's gonna be slow for a while. It's gonna be gradual. I'm gonna pull for it whenever I feel like it, but I probably won't finish this one until the end of the year. Okay. The Maybelline Fit Me Blush in the shade Buff. I have the goal of hitting pan on this one. I used it 4 times in the month of January, 12 times in the month of February, 6 times in the month of March, 10 times in the month of April, 0 times in the month of May, and 8 times in the month of June before hitting pan. I met my goal, y'all. I met a goal on 2 blushes this month. Just let it out, sister friend. I hit pan. I wasn't expecting to hit pan this soon, to be honest. I've used it 40 times so far within the project, and it was relatively new, I would say, when I rolled it in. But I do want to mention that when I use this blush, I tend to use a denser blush brush. That is a tongue twister. Blush brush. I tend to use a denser blush brush when I am applying it, and I think that that does make a big difference in terms of how much product you use in any given application. Obviously, more product shows up on your skin when you're using a denser brush. So I think that that feeds into the fact that I hit pan on it so soon. But I did it. In 40 uses within the project, I hit pan. In terms of overall tracking, I have marked that I've only used this blush 59 times. So I would say that that is pretty quick to hit pan on a blush. 60 uses before hitting pan, that's pretty rapid. Again, I think some of that is related to the brush that you use, but I also think it is formula. This is a slightly powderier. This is a slightly more powdery formula, and that also means that more product kind of kicks up and you lose more product with every application. So only 60 uses overall before I hit pan on it, 40 within this project. 3 goals, y'all. 3 goals hit. Okay, now the Living Libations Maiden Fern. I have the goal of using this product 100 times. I used it 11 times in the month of January, 11 times in the month of February, 9 times in the month of March, 15 times in the month of April, 19 times in the month of May, and 10 times in the month of June, for a total of 75 uses so far within the project. That's pretty good. 75 out of 100. That is pretty good. I tried to take some photos from different angles this time so you could kind of see how the product is dipping. It is hard to pick up on in the camera, but I did my best to try to capture that dip. I feel like maybe I could hit pan on this in the next 25 uses, but these types of things are deceptive. It's hard to know. It's definitely hard to know, but I will certainly be meeting that goal of 100 uses this year. Based off my previous use, maybe 2 months left. All right, now the MAC paint pot in the shade Groundwork. I have the goal of using this product 100 times as well. I used it 16 times in the month of January, 18 times in the month of February, 13 times in the month of March, 8 times in the month of April, 17 times in the month of May, and 6 times in the month of June. So definitely a dip, a very sizable dip in usage. I just haven't been reaching for this one. I haven't wanted to. I haven't been gravitating towards it, and that is allowed. That's allowed within Project Pan. Sometimes I think we feel like we have to use everything a lot every month until it's gone, and that's like the Project Pan feeling, you know? There's a lot of pressure that we can put on ourselves to finish products when it's really just supposed to be fun. And so I try to hold it all a bit loosely, and if I'm not feeling like it, then I let it go. And when you let something go, it tends to have a higher likelihood of coming back to you. This is my theory anyways. I think that I will want to use MAC Groundwork again. I will find a way that I enjoy using it. I have 71 uses on it so far, only 29 to go before I hit that 100, which is definitely feasible over the next 5 months of the year. The usage has just slowed down a bit right now. Oh, I'm too old to be sitting in this position, I must say. Okay, next up, my largest undertaking, the Chanel Soleil Tan de Chanel. Originally, I had the goal of using this one 100 times, and then several months back, I decided instead that I wanted to finish it all the way up. There is so much product in here, and it has proven a lot harder than I thought, but recently I've started to see the progress, which has been motivating for me. I used this 7 times in the month of January, 31 times in the month of February, 21 times in the month of March, 19 times in the month of April, 12 times in the month of May, and 28 times in the month of June. So as you can see in May, when I only used it that 12 times, that was when I was on the ebb. You know, I was feeling a bit discouraged about it. And then slowly I could start to see the way that things were changing in the pan. I could start to see lines underneath packaging that I couldn't see before. And I'm like, hey, maybe I'm doing something right. Maybe this is working. And I really picked back up the usage in the month of June. I was highly motivated. I used it 28 times, which I'm betting is as many times as I did my makeup. I'm very motivated with this one right now. And while I still question myself, my sanity, my dignity, all of the things that I put on the line in order to finish this bronzer, why did I do that? I still question myself to this day. But I think maybe I can do it. I think maybe I could finish it. And I'll have you know that this is not even all of the Chanel bronzer that I have. I had decanted some of it. I decanted it into another pot so that I could travel with it because the packaging is so bulky. I do not have the goal of finishing that little pot as well. That will be for a different year, not this one, but I do want to finish the product that is in this big one. And I have this tiniest glimmer of hope that maybe I could do it. I have 5 months left. This is a good time. This is as good a time as any for there to be a glimmer of hope. We are mid-marathon. You know what I mean? And that's when you need hope, even if it's a lie. I've never run a marathon before. Can you tell? Yeah, I've got hope. I think that maybe I could actually finish this bronzer in the next 5 months. Now, the RMS Verity bronzer. I have the goal of using this one 75 times. I used it 5 times in the month of January, 0 times in the month of February, 9 times in the month of March, 15 times in the month of April, 9 times in the month of May, and 3 times in the month of June, for a total of 41 uses so far within the project. I mentioned this in the last update, but my struggle with this one is that it is one of my favorites, and so that means I have this kind of save it for a rainy day mentality around it. I want to use it, and I also don't want to use it because I don't want it to be gone. So I only used it 3 times in the month of June. I think this is also related to the fact that I'm very focused on the Chanel one, and I typically only wear one or the other, but 3 uses, that's not much. There are 34 uses left within the project before I meet the goal, the 75 use goal. I think that I can do it, but some of it will depend on how quickly I finish up the Chanel one. I'm also working on the Lumi bronzer at the same time. Boy, I really did roll in a lot of bronzers, didn't I? I'm gonna say that I can do it. I'm gonna put out that kind of confidence to myself mostly. I can do it. I can meet the 75 use goal. I think it will take me the entirety of the rest of the year before that happens. All right, now the Kier Weiss Cream Blush in the shade Inner Glow. I have the goal of using this one 75 times as well. I used it 9 times in the month of January, 3 times in the month of February, 6 times in the month of March, 5 times in the month of April, 9 times in the month of May, and 2 times in the month of June. Only 2 times, 2 little times. 34 uses. I've used it 34 times so far within the project. I'm not surprised that I only used it 2 times in June. I want to say I did finish another blush in June and hit pan on another blush besides that. So I'm not doing too shabby in terms of the blush goals, but you just can't focus on everything all at once. So I was focusing on finishing up the Sephora one. I was focusing on hitting pan on the Fit Me one, and I was not focused on using the Kier Weiss one as a result. I think now that I've hit those 2 other blush goals, and that's 2 fewer blushes that are kind of contending with this Kier Weiss one, I think that I will get more use on it. 3 blushes still is quite a lot to focus on, but I think now that I've finished up those 2 other ones, I will have more love to give to the Kier Weiss, and hopefully that will happen in July. Now, the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation, I have the goal of using this one 50 times. I used it 8 times in the month of January, 0 times in the month of February, 9 times in the month of March, 5 times in the month of April, 6 times in the month of May, and 2 times in the month of June. I think in general, I don't gravitate towards a higher coverage foundation in the summer months, in the warmer months. It's all just gonna fall off my face anyways. That's my feeling about makeup in 90-degree heat. And so I lean more towards lightweight tinted moisturizers, tinted sunscreens, those kinds of things, because nothing is staying. And that's okay with me. I have learned through the process of using this product that I really do love it. I really love having it in my collection, and I'm starting to see windowing. I've used it 30 times so far out of the 50. So that's good. That's good progress going on. And I'm starting to see that windowing, which is exciting. And some of that settling is because I haven't really used it, because you have to shake it when you use it. And so it's harder to capture the windowing on months that I use it more. But I can see it now. I can see how much progress I have so far, and that's exciting. I don't think that I'll have any trouble using it 20 more times in the course of the year, but I do imagine that it probably will take the rest of the year in order to do that, just because of the way that I've been using it, the way that I've preferred to use it, just a few times every single month. But I do think I will have 50 uses on it by the end of the year. Okay, now the Clé de Peau concealer. I have the shade Beige. I have the goal of using this one 50 times. I used it 2 times in the month of January, 6 times in the month of February, 12 times in the month of March, 11 times in the month of April, 9 times in the month of May, and 1 time in the month of June. Only once. Only once did I use this product in the month of June. I've used it a total of 41 times so far within the project. So there's only 9 uses left. And I think hearing that number at the end of my last update, where I really was using it quite a lot, I just started to feel comfortable, 9 uses. It's like a week. It's like a week of use. Do you guys ever do that where you're like, you always round down or you always round up? Like if it's going to take me 28 minutes to get somewhere, I'm like, oh, it's about 20 minutes away. But if it's going to take me 35 minutes to get somewhere, I'm like, oh, it's like 40 minutes. Do I really want to go? It's 40 minutes. But the difference between 28 and 35, it's just 7 minutes. What kind of math is that? Don't say girl math. It's not girl math. It gives me nothing. That gives me nothing. It just confuses me. Anyways, I think once I saw that there was only 9 uses left until I met that goal of 50 uses, I felt like I could kind of take my foot off the pedal a little bit and just relax around it. So I just haven't been reaching for it. I haven't been thinking about it. I haven't wanted heavy stuff on my skin. I tend to reach for this Clé de Peau one when I have acne or discoloration that I want to cover up on my face, and that hasn't been happening as frequently as previous months. So just overall, I haven't needed it, haven't used it. One thing I will say after using it this 41 times and kind of watching the project pictures, what they say about this product is true. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the Clé de Peau concealer, but it is quite expensive when it comes to concealers, when it comes to concealer price points. I want to say that it's in the $70 range. I personally got it at TJ Maxx, and so it was maybe half that amount, which is still quite a lot. That's still quite a lot for a concealer. But I do want to say, and you guys can see, I've used it almost 50 times, and you can't tell. At least I can't tell. A little goes a long way. I know I was poking fun about this fact in one of my first videos that I ever put up on YouTube, that a little goes a long way, but it really does. Go figure. I imagine that this concealer, with the way that I use it and the proportions that I use it, will last me for quite a long time, and potentially cost per use, especially for me because I got it half off, could be worth it, because honestly the formula is quite good. Just some thoughts about a very expensive concealer from me to you. All right, the Saint Cream Foundation in the shade Aura and Amber. I have the goal of using this one 50 times to kind of suss out my feelings about it. Is that how you use that word? That just came out of my mouth. Suss out? Figure out what I feel about it. I feel more confident about the word figure than the word suss. I wanted to use it 50 times. I used it 4 times in the month of January, 4 times in the month of February, 0 times in the month of March, 0 times in the month of April, 2 times in the month of May, and 0 times in the month of June. I think I figured out what I feel about it, don't you? Just to give it the benefit of the doubt, I will say that I have the tendency, I've noticed within the project pan this year, to focus on one base product at a time. And because this one is slightly hard for me to reach for anyways, and because I had other base products that I was reaching for, I reached for the NYX until it was finished. I've been working on the Shiseido one. It's almost done. It just makes it that much harder to reach for the Saint one. I'm thinking right now that once I finish the Shiseido one, I probably will try and focus on the Saint one to really kind of get some use on it and actually figure out what I feel about it. Because I find that when I get in the rhythm of using a product, it's not hard for me to reach for. It's just that kind of initial, I don't know what you would call it. It's the first step. The first step is the hardest. I've used it 10 times out of the 50. I believe, I don't know if this is completely irrational, but I think that I can use it 40 more times in the remainder of the year. I don't think that that goal has been lost because of all of these months of 0 uses, 0 uses, 0 uses. It'll be slightly harder and I will have to be intentional about it, but I think I can do it. Okay, last couple of items. I've got the Glossier Generation G in the shade Zip. I have the goal of using this one 45 times. I used it 1 time in the month of January, 4 times in the month of February, 0 times in the month of March, 1 time in the month of April, 12 times in the month of May, and 8 times in the month of June. So I really had an uptick, an upswing in the use on this Generation G. I'm not one to naturally gravitate toward red lips. I like it on occasion. And so the 45 uses definitely was a challenge for me. But I think after using it only 1 time here or there throughout the first few months of the year, I realized I'm going to need to use it 5 times a month in order to meet that goal. It just made me rethink my approach to it. Instead of kind of shaping my whole look around a red lip, I decided to just be more casual, with it, layer it up with other things, and that has really helped in getting more usage on this product. I used it 12 times in May and 8 times in June. So that brings the total up to 26 times so far within the project. I only have 19 uses to go, and that feels way more comfortable to me in terms of where I sat a couple months ago. I think I can kind of relax a little bit. I don't necessarily need to use it 10 times every month now. I can just use it as I feel like it, and I don't think I'll have any trouble reaching that 45 use goal. And if I come to the end of the year and I have totally neglected it and I only have 2 months left, I can take comfort in the fact that I have that kind of casual use card in my back pocket. All right, the Milani matte lipstick in the shade Matte Innocence. I have the goal of using this one 100 times. I didn't roll it in until March, but I have had a lot of steady use on it over the past few months. I used it 19 times in the month of March, 10 times in the month of April, 21 times in the month of May, and 11 times in the month of June. So a slight slowdown from very major use in the month of May, but I've used it 60 times overall within the project. I only have 40 uses left to meet that 100 use goal. And I would say with the very steady use that I have on it, I just can't imagine not meeting that 100 uses by the end of the year. If I sit around that 15 times a month mark, I'm looking at about 3 months before I hit the 100 uses. So that would be my best guess. 3 more months until I meet this goal. Last but not least, I'm going to roll in a new product. I don't generally do this just because I like to roll everything in at the beginning of the year so I can kind of pick and choose what I want to focus on throughout the year as I feel like it. But since I finished my Well People Baked Foundation, I don't have a powder anymore in the project. And at first I was thinking to just casually use the ones that I have, but I started to notice some unusual use happening on my Rimmel Stay Matte. So I thought, why not roll it in and see how it compares usage-wise to something like a baked foundation, like the Well People one that I just finished. So overall, I have the goal of finishing this one. I'm going to see if I can finish it by the end of the year. I did take a picture of it at the beginning of June, and I documented my use over the course of June. I used it 28 times. Basically every single time that I did my makeup, I used this powder. And the real reason that I wanted to roll it in is because I feel like I'm already starting to see rings. I feel like I'm already starting to see the impression of the rings coming through on the bottom. I've used this product 28 times within this project, but I've only used it 39 times since owning it. So I feel like that is quite soon to start to see the rings and to potentially hit pan, because in my experience, once you see the rings, it is not very far off before you hit pan, and then once you hit pan, it's not very far off before you finish. So I'm really curious to see how many uses are available within the Rimmel Stay Matte powder versus something like the Well People Baked Foundation, which does cost more, but I got 323 uses on it. I got almost a year's worth of makeup use on that single powder. So I'm just curious, for science, I'd like to know how much use is actually possible within the Rimmel Stay Matte, and I'm going to try to finish it by the end of the year, and we will just have to see. All right, guys, that is the update. I am really happy about how things are moving along. I was looking back through my notes, and I have met 12 goals so far within the project, and I think I have maybe 30, something like that. And I'm really not far away for several of the things that I'm working on. So I feel like I'm sitting at a comfortable spot. There's a lot of usage happening, and I feel good about it. If you made it this far, I'm very glad. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting, and I will see you in the next one.